Returning once again to the universe of Type Moon, with the last character being a primordial entity used as waifu bait. This time around, rather than something Lovecraftian or a historical entity, Type Moon and Figma decided to bring us back to reality, instead bring us a modern day high schooler that happens to work for an organization with nefarious practices. Ciel is from the visual novel Tsukihime and is the childhood friend and potential waifu bait that during the day is your typical Japanese high schooler, but at night it's Batman, minus the no killing rule, in which she exterminates any non-human entities so that human supremacy can be withheld at any cost. When taking a close look at Figma's reproduction of Ciel, it's a figure that, while faithfully recreated with the top tier quality that Figma is renowned for, it is at the cost of some questionable decisions and certain placements that give me flashbacks to another figure line. Look at the head. It is obvious that just by the hair design that Ciel would be the underdog in a relationship dynamic, as if anime hasn't taught us anything, it's the definite rule that a blue hair girl or gentleman usually bite the dust, and Ciel seems to be another victim in such trend. Regardless of the historical and cultural background, the hair is beautifully rendered with the numerous individual hairlines being distinct from one another, not to mention that all of them culminate in a spiky end that is beautifully portrayed courtesy of the Figma line. But a big oopsie that Good Smile Company seems to have made is that besides the line at the front that due to the separate hairpiece enables the exchange of additional faces, there is an additional trench behind that doesn't add an additional gimmick, alongside the fact that it's the first time for even Figma themselves, somewhat breaking the authenticity of the actual mold. Moving down to the face, this is a major that Figma excels at, as they are the masters of replicating 2D faces into a 3D design, something that other lines are somewhat lackluster in, and such reputation is superbly portrayed in Ciel's anime-accurate face, as the large and blue Type Moon eyes are intricately depicted that they reflect Ciel's warm-hearted but fiery soul, the pointy anime nose, and the young and slim but lively high school cheeks.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
And the lipless anime-style mouth that seems to have a sculpt misdesign, as there is a carved line that is still present and again breaks the authenticity of those lips. But if this dull and emotionless face was enough for you, but I'm sorry to say that there's only two accompanying faces. Firstly, there is this battle-hardened face that this time around possesses the inverted eyebrows, anger and fury-filled pupils that
gives you focus,
the more bloated cheeks, and a gritting mouth with all the inner teeth being explicitly shown, that all combine to form an expression that Ciel is usually seen when either engaging a threat that she knows she has no chance of winning against, or when she's in the presence of a waifu far beyond her comprehension. But if you're fond of Ciel's more softer side, there is this blushing face that when applied fulfills such desires as portrayed through the enlarged hope-filled pupils, the pink blushes applied on the cheeks, and a semi-open petite mouth. And having such expression makes it the perfect face when Ciel is in the presence of someone she fancies, or is a little too curious for her own good. Moving down to the torso, it is obvious that the designer had the time of his life, as the church-provided battle uniform may be performance-wise one of the most ineffective designs I have seen, with the completely exposed arms and the unveiled upper chest. This is not mentioning the slim tight fit and the short skirt, but aesthetic-wise, aesthetic-wise, it was the right call. This is supported by the relatively large and broad shoulders, zero fat reserve abdomen, and a larger-than-life, for a high schooler, chest that is the perfect breeding ground for the perfect organism. But just like the head, the abdomen also suffers from the awkward ratchet joints seen previously on Figma's iteration of Akaza and Arquid, that not only breaks any sense of authenticity that the figure holds, but also say goodbye to side-to-side movement. Moving below the belt, Ciel's battle uniform, just like most of the Type Moon based characters, retains the short skirt, but this time around in black.
Once you go black, you're gonna need a wheelchair.
This is not mentioning the thick arms that provide Ciel with extra waist strength, but let's be honest, it's there for pure fan service. but not as thick as those seen on the perfect organism. But maybe the biggest indicator of a healthy lifestyle are those thick legs that not only enable Ciel to perform the impressive moves as seen on screen, but also highlight this high schooler's femininity. But maybe the most unique aspect regarding the legs is the lower half, as the superhero inspired leggings are a delight and add an extra layer of drip to the already dripped out outfit, especially with the organic balance of the black and blue paint job. This is not mentioning those high heels that not only add in adding to Ciel's drip, but also to adding extra inches to Ciel's overall height, making her stand tall and proud next to her male contemporaries, but still a hobbit when placed next to this perfect organism. But maybe the biggest downgrade that plagues this figure is that compared to the likes of the previous figures or modern day figure arts, the knees seen here are extremely brittle as they bend a little too easily and thus limit Ciel's ability to either crouch or kneel, making this figure a nightmare when posing her in practical positions. When looking at the accessories that Ciel comes accompanied with, they are impressive to even Figma standards, as just like Arcuit Brunstad, Ciel, as the fighter she is, comes lock and loaded with the US military's daily arsenal. So let's talk about the hands first. Besides the out-of-the-box fists for punching pesky humans, there are these wide open hands for when Ciel is protecting herself from a little ballsack, the big open shooting hands when she's using her beloved pulse rifle, these alternative trigger hands and holding hands that when combined allow Ciel to wield her beloved BFG, the pile driver. But when hostiles are present and Ciel is forced to engage in CQB, there is no better melee weapon than the church loves, minus minors, than the three-bladed handheld black keys. And look at the said weapons, they happen to be three individual blades with a rudimentary handle, all held by the user's handheld strength, which while might add extra reach and added evisceration to the wielder against standard hostiles, when thrust against an entity that employs high velocity strikes as their main offense, let's just say that the Skywalker lineage would be very proud. But when Ciel thrust against an organism that is far too deadly to be engaged in close quarters, the Holy Church in all their child molesting wisdom bestows the titular minor with her own pulse rifle. I mean composite rifle. And I gotta say that when it comes to weapons, Figma does their magic once again, as the weathered look is beautifully recreated as portrayed through the metallic components colored in the dark grey metallic paint job, the dark brown wood being reminiscent of classic firearms, the engravings on both the stock and especially the church insignia on the barrel going extra, and the underside of the bullpup stock having its own gimmick where it can extend for some consecutive firepower. This is not mentioning the muzzle effect piece accompanied in the DX set that, when attached to the end of the barrel, perfectly recreates Ciel when she's thrust into a corner, where she shows off the true firepower of the compound rifle.
4, 3, 2, 1.
But when Ciel is out of ammo or comes face to face with a true Lovecraftian entity in which your standard lead has no effect on, there is this pile driver that, unlike the compound rifle, goes extra in every regard, as not only are the metallic and wooden parts organically recreated similar to the rifle, but the handle is completely separated from the bullpup body alongside the separate grip. This is not mentioning the further enhanced stock, where in order to add extra firepower has increased in size, as well as the added gimmick where the barrel shieldings can expand in order to place the projectile. Talking about projectiles, that with a pearl metallic color and the sheer proportions regarding scale can be inserted into the firearm, in which makes it the perfect weapon when then ending either potential molesters or the primordial entity. Although, even so, the only D she's winning is from a facehugger. As a high schooler, and a Japanese one at that, you don't expect Ciel to stand tall compared to her human contemporaries, but I couldn't have been ever more wrong. As Ciel being a combatant first and foremost, and a high schooler second, the extra muscle and training has made Ciel a tall and healthy girl, as she stands at 14.5 centimeters or roughly 5.7 inches tall, only being a hobbit in the eyes of the perfect organism. Here's Ciel next to Gunpla, Kaijus, Figuarts, and fellow Type Moon Figmas. Now, as a Figma figure, you expect Ciel to perform similar feats of posability to the rest of the roster, especially after the masterpiece that was Figma's Arcwood Broomstick. But to quote a famous visionary,
Reality is often disappointing.
as Figma this time around made certain decisions that limit Ciel's range of movement and makes me question this line's reputation. The head, thanks to the short hair, can move up and down, side to side. The torso, thanks to being a separate piece, can move up and down, side to side. And the added ratchet joint, while providing front and back movement, say goodbye to side movement. And while the shoulder lift is superb, due to the shape of the back and the lack of a butterfly joint, arm movement is somewhat awkward and limits certain poses. Elbows can bend roughly 90 degrees, run-of-the-mill hand movement, and while leg movement is superb, it is limited by the nature of the plastic skirt. The knees can bend over 90 degrees due to the previously mentioned nature of the flimsy joints. Shooting at a crotch position is nigh impossible, stiff and limited feet movement, and the toe bend. So regarding posability, while Ciel does retain the diverse range that puts her ahead of most kaijus and certain figure arts, the limitations such as the questionable choice in joints, the flimsy nature of a certain few, and the particular sculpting choices that limits the joints, puts her below the standards left off by the Figma line, especially her Tsukihime predecessor, and makes her more or less a disappointment, especially compared to a non-human figure. So, to sum up my thoughts about the wannabe Wolverine here, Figma did their magic once again as they have successfully recreated Ciel's 2D characteristics into plastic form, and gave us a splendid figure as portrayed through the screen-accurate sculpt, the impressive size for a human, and the abundance of accessories, especially firearms, that puts a tier to even fellow Americans. But this figure is also plagued by some questionable decisions, such as the choice to reintroduce a ratchet joint, straight out unnecessary crevices, and the flimsy joints that not only break the authenticity regarding screen accuracy, but also limit the range of poses you can place Ciel in, which is one of the reasons you purchase a Figma figure in the first place. With all that out of the way, while this figure has its strong points, I can only recommend it to people who already have an interest in Tsukihime, firearms, or people who have a fetish in blue-colored short-haired girls. For the rest, I say it's a pass. In doing so, I'm gonna give Ciel here a ranking of a B+.